Hello, welcome to today's collective general message or broadcast, whatever these mostly non-card ones are becoming. As always, remember to use your own discernment, join with intention, and allow the message to be received with an open heart. A quantum reminder, we are speaking through symbol and story here, so please do not rely on tarot readings as factual evidence. You are always encouraged to do your own research, especially when engaging with strangers on the internet. So this is what I've been drafting in my notes app for the past couple days. The message that's been coming through is definitely about seeds. I don't know if this will be getting used, but this is something that I've had these little pieces of wax and medicines and a little bit of straw or tree of some kind fiber for maybe 2 months, and I keep meaning to do something with it, and then nothing really comes. Of course, it has been a very strenuous 6 weeks. But I feel like that's going to come into play. Yeah, as that taps on that. So cheers, heard. Now, cards may come into this part. I don't know yet. Okay, here we go. Also, I'm waiting for the moment that that little guy falls. Something about that is going to say something. Now, seeds. I came across a YouTube short the other day that was talking about how food manufacturers have been making like seedless grapes, seedless whatever. And I don't want to say like everything is or is not. This is a video I watched on the internet that inspired me to talk to these things. And it was, as my throat, and it was talking about how by making things seedless, they're taking away this is coming into play. They are taking away our ability to grow things for ourselves and nurture our own bodies, communities, systems. And that stood out to me. And I was reminded of please forgive me, I may pronounce this wrong, Svalbard Global Seed Vault. That is in, is it in Greenland? Norwegian? Somewhere over there. Netherlandy. And if you are not familiar with it, it's basically a vault built, and look into it yourself, of course. It's a vault built inside, like deep inside a mountain, and it's hosting, I don't know if it's thousands to millions, whatever the big number is, of seeds, so that when a time comes when we have these crops and plants and fruits and vegetables and all of these things that need a seed to exist, when all of those are extinct on Earth, this can pop up and say, surprise, we can continue populating, we have a copy of everything, and we can continue growing. When I was working in post-secondary, a colleague of mine who, don't quote me, but I am pretty sure he is a geologist at Earth Sciences in one form or another, he did an exchange to this Svalbard Global Seed Vault. And when he came back, he did a presentation for staff on it. And so I went. And this is, I don't know if I say like trigger warning, but like it's depressing. It's melting and it's defrosting at such a rate, and they don't have a backup plan. Now, grant you, this was maybe a year and a half, not even 2 years ago, I think. So who knows what has gone on there since. This is an outsider's perspective, but was working alongside these teams for, I think, a few weeks to a few months. And when he brought this back and I was sitting there in a classroom listening to an expert on these areas talk about, I don't know what they're going to do, because this is supposed to be the solution for so many living organisms not going extinct. And it's faulty and it's not working. And now, so to that, it was speaking about not relying on a savior force to solve all problems, individual and systemic. And this is going to touch a little into politics, which I could talk forever on, and I try very hard to not bring politics onto this channel. It's not going to be the government or any of these elite powers that be that provide the solution that we need to survive and thrive and continue forward. If we continue to wait on, and this now goes into more symbol and story, speaking about ourselves as systems, etc. If we continue waiting for something outside of us to come in and save us, one, we are just disempowering ourselves. né? And we are removing our ability to nurture and grow these skills and evolve, therefore our capacity to care for ourselves and one another. And so what the message that has been coming through is that it is all about the individual level. Now, when I wrote, and like you'll see my writing changes and does different things, and I don't know how to explain it, but it's different information that's coming through. And this here, sometimes when I write a U, it is instructed to me, or it's not like it takes over my hand, but it's less about mind to hand writing, and it's more so moving with the symbols and messages that are introducing their way to me. I don't know how to explain it. Anyway, channeling to some sort, I'm sure. But it's always been a thing. So anyway, the more of the lifelong journey of putting words to experience. So it's not about something else coming in. It's about what's in coming out. Now, how are you contributing to this level of planetary healing? And this part is kind of, well, it's very literal, and it's not going to apply to everyone, of course, but just to give you a sense or a way of viewing it. If we're not able to rely on the government and corporations like grocery stores, and what is it, like 5 companies that own all the food in, I think that's in America. I'm not sure how it is in Canada. I'm sure it's not that much better. And again, this is only talking about 2 out of 3 countries in North America, and we also have the rest of the world, and I cannot speak to those systems. One way of doing it is like maybe you are someone that gardens or has access to a community garden. You're able to grow produce of some kind. You are self-sufficient. Yeah, lighting up for someone. And then Pam Gregory always mentions this, and I'm like, that's a good point. You can do something as small as growing herbs on a windowsill. So if you don't have access to the earth directly, or a balcony, or anywhere that you can be growing like hardier plants and roots, then you're able to do something like if you buy green onions from the grocery store and you have the whites with the little hairy bits on the bottom, you put those inside a tiny little glass with a bit of water, and you put that in a window, and that is going to grow green onions, and that is going to continue replenishing itself, and that becomes a sustainable harvest you can rely on. Can you survive off of green onions alone? No, but it does start painting the picture of how we ask ourselves, how can we contribute to planetary healing given all that is going on? Talking about our and collective survival and moving beyond survival and moving through into thriving, living fully. I've talked about this to death in in my professional world and in my personal life, and I've like written about this and gotten published academically. Like, I'm tired of talking about it, but I will continue. We view, as a society, there's so many. Anyway, we view disaster as equivalent to temporary. And so when it comes to disasters cropping up, and this started when we were heading smack dab into COVID and entering a global pandemic, things that were showing up in response to the pandemic were all aimed at this being temporary. This is something that's going to end, it will change, and we will no longer need this. Cut to 6 years later, and we need these things and more than ever, and it's not enough. So this is talking about, and like my background academically is Asian studies, but especially social work. And so I'm looking at social services and then systems and like government, nonprofit, all these things, right? Housing, oh my God. And so by learning to view our situationship with crisis in a new way, we are able to actually define what is chaos in context. And now it's telling me for this. Okay. And so aside from grow your own garden, nurture a green onion, what are more conceptual seeds that you can consider? What speaks to you? I'm quickly viewing up here on my phone, and then I see how this is splayed out. And from my eyes as a person, T, as a human sitting on a little vacuum box, staring at this page, I see, it's some wax, and then there's some earth mixed inside there. And I look up and I see, oh, it's like rose petals. That's so beautiful. Oh my goodness. And so yes, perspective is everything. And here, oh yes. So when I was right, and like it was different, I had to change the words up for spacing. But then it came into here we channel. So that is our context. And where are we? 12 minutes in. Then it was either a few days later, no, because this has to be within like 2 to 3 days. It was either a few hours later or like later that night or the next day or something. The next thing that came in was this shape and then seeds within a grape. And looking at how this, if you imagine, can be viewed as a grape and its seeds of different kind or size, etc. And how much empty space there is. If we move all this aside and we go back to the basics of what is, there are still remnants of what has been placed and removed. It's not fully gone. Despite powers that be that try to erase, remove, and cover up existences, there is always a continuation. And viewing this grape also as an atom and how much empty space there is in the universe. And I don't remember which, I've been having so many like cosmic science, like the math and physics of the universe, etc., etc. I've been listening to so much of that recently. And somewhere in there, we were talking about how it's only like 1% of the universe is made up of matter. And I could totally be getting that science wrong. So like, again, you're not here to quote me on the physical sciences, right? I got a lot of social science for you, and this is not that. And so if everything in our physical reality, again, don't quote me, look into it. If everything in our physical reality is made up of atoms, and atoms are the majority of empty space, then that means that the universe is the majority of empty space. And even looking at that phrase, empty space, what do you mean? Space is full of everything, right? But we as humans have this expectation that everything needs to be together as one, and then no matter how hard you pull to try and remove, it is stuck, solid, fixed. No. It can move and separate. It would be a freakish, weird accident, but my finger could just fly off right now. Could just gone, right? And And I use these extreme examples again, talking about it would be a miracle if my hand went through this table, which if you've been watching my videos for a while is kind of like my bread and butter example that I go to for how reality is not fixed, is not one way, is not concrete into one position, because it's just a bunch of atoms huddled together. They don't merge into this one and new. And then there's like nuclear science, is like a whole thing that I don't understand, so like don't worry about it. But everything is just atoms rubbing together at different frequencies and paces, right? And that is what makes something more or less solid, dense, etc. And so with atoms making up all of physical reality, this being the entire universe, look at all that wiggle room. Because inside an atom we have, oh, science, don't fail me now. There's the electron, there's the proton, and the nucleus. So there's all of these different pieces inside of it. But if I wanted to, if we imagine that all of these pieces of wax are, ooh, look at that, how fun, are these little circles that I drew, okay? So I'm gonna ask you to forget the purple marker inside the circle. The limit does not exist. And so there's all of these things that are, there we go, that are super spaced out, right? And so they're all like boing, 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 boing inside of this. And it is possible for all of this energy to be totally concentrated in one area. Again, ignore the purple ink. This is all that is inside the nucleus. And it's kind of like that, that episode of America's Next Top Model when they had them, the runway was on a pool and they were in those balls and they were just like flopping around. I just finished rewatching Weeds. I hadn't seen it in like 13 years and I'm like, oh, such a good show. And the son, the older son, also was in one of those bubbles. So that's like recently in my brain. And basically all this to say, the weight of this matter, this physical concentration of energy, can then start maneuvering inside this atom, pushing it into other ways, and then the atom itself will start to move and relate. Like if all the energy is around and it suddenly goes over here, oh my goodness, that's gonna push this over here. If it keeps bing banging and then gets a sudden strike force to go over here, well, that's gonna move it over here, right? It's kind of hard to explain with wax and marker, but here comes through ripples, waves, overlay, overlay. So overlay came through in its own kind of text, which means that that's a very specific message coming through for someone, something, somewhere. And then these questions came through, and I don't know if I'm going to be going into these questions or just sharing them with you. It says, what do we take or acknowledge from the pieces we can distinguish? What do we make of the empty space? What can be adjusted, rearranged? Okay, I'm not going to go into that. I will leave that for you. And then the last thing was day, sun, center. In Japanese, how you write, like, okay, let me write you the date. Let's keep this fun. And they do the year first, so it's 2026. That's the sign for year. It's the 7th month. That's the sign for month, but also represents moon. And then this means the day of the month, and it represents like the sun. And I thought it was interesting that this looks very similar, just structured to the symbol for sun that we have in, I know we have it in astrology, but I think it all, now I'm getting everything mixed up. I'm like, would I call this part of esotericism? Would I call this part of alchemy? Alchemy, perhaps? And so the crossover between what we view, witness, recognize in a remembrance through the universe gets carried into expressions of human language through form. Yeah, nudging that. Okay. So, yep, incense, there you go. So we are going to step into cards, and I'm gonna get one from this, and then I'm gonna start another video so this isn't like 45 minutes long. Discernment. This is, don't mind the ring light, it's like midnight right now. This card has been coming up a lot more, and seeing the, you know, this circle, sun, this sphere, what is inside this atom, right? All of these little parts. So I am getting that this is, yes, discernment is for everything, and also use your discernment when engaging with information, knowledge, education, news that has to do with the climate, what's going on along the earth right now. It's not healthy to be watching the news all the time. One, it's just the media is pushing whatever it is that it has been informed to push on to you, blah, 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 etc., etc., etc. And I also have the opinion that consuming so much despair from the entire world of most everything that is outside of your control doesn't help you focus on what is within your control. And what is within your control is you. So I think this message is going to be talking about how to focus on you. 34, ancient wisdom. Okay. So it is going to be how to tune in. What do we have on bottom? Masculine energy. These cards have been coming up a lot. I think masculine came in recently as well. Okay. I'm going to wrap that there. I didn't even say. Thank you for being here. If this message resonated with you, you found it interesting, you can like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to hear from me more often. In the description, there is a link to my Substack, which hosts the 444 Collective, where the signal is active. There's also a link to my Buy Me a Coffee, where you can book a personal reading or experimental integration session. Yes. Okay. Stay tuned.